Hello everyone once again. This is Dennis coming to you from Greece as always, and welcome to episode 11 of the Red Sea podcast. What a week! What a week! Pleasure to be joined once again by Gavin. Floor is yours.
Yeah, great to be back, joining from Arizona. It's a lot earlier in the day for me than it is for you. But yeah, like you said, it's been an incredible week, and we have a an exciting next couple of weeks coming up with the basketball and the football.
We have an exciting couple of weeks coming up in general. Before I get through the typical stuff from the show, just got to shout out the water polo boys getting the win over Brescia and securing another European final for the team, which is insane. I mean, we knew they were through, but it's official now.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, the water polo for Olympiacos has been it's one of the sports in the club that's always very competitive. So not much of a surprise there, but hopefully again, like with some of the other sports that are coming up in the finals, obviously football, basketball, handball. I don't think they've played yet. Um, Hopefully that's just a sign of things to come for us. But it's great for the club to see yet another European title.
I mean, we are officially the multi-sport club with the most titles in, I think, Europe. I don't think it's the world. I think it's Europe with 310 to Barcelona's 309. No.
There we go.
Uh, But yeah, gotta shout out the support that the vlog got, which has been I haven't processed that. A video on a channel that started 2 months ago is on its way to I think it's over 600 views now, which is insane. It's insane. And surely there's more to come, a lot of plans for this show in general. But I know I got you for a limited time again, so let's get into the subject today, shall we? Fiorentina, Fiorentina. What a weird team to research this year.
Yeah, I've spent the past couple days kind of trying to deep dive into them, watching some film from their European semifinal and some of the recent Serie A results. Just from the face of it, it looks like we're gonna have a hell of a match in the final. They are a very attacking football team, which I mean, from a neutral perspective, that'll be a great spectacle because both teams like to get after it. As Olympiacos fans, it might be nervy at times, but definitely, I think there's a lot of interesting tactical perspectives to take on Fiorentina, and I'm interested to see how Mendilibar will approach them because we saw him change the nuance in his tactics between the matches against Villa, and it worked both times. So I think it's going to be a really interesting final. I think that in some ways the way that Fiorentina plays can actually benefit Olympiacos because our play style could cause them a lot of issues, but at the same time, they could cause us a lot of problems. And obviously, we can get more into that in detail. But what are some of your first thoughts, just looking at them surface level?
As you said, very, very attacking team and a team that very similarly to us that has a lot of passion in their play, a lot of hunger in their play. Of course, you talked about latest Serie A results. They came back 2-1 to a fighting Monza with the two, I think, two of the most dangerous players, safe to say, for Fiorentina this season, who are Nico Gonzalez and, of course, a man that before watching some film, as you did, I had no clue was in Fiorentina. They revamped completely Arsenal. It will for sure be a very interesting match.
Yeah, one of the bits that I came away with watching some of the film on that Monza match with Artur Melo scoring that game winner, which is not generally his role. Fiorentina are up to 18 different goal scorers in Serie A this season. I think they've only scored 53 goals. So that goes to show you that this team is not dominated by one player. They have danger that can come at you from all angles, and yeah, like you said, just the way that they attack, like they're so cavalier with it. One of the things I've noticed watching them play, a lot of times they'll get 8 players forward. You'll see a lot of times it's just the 2 center backs standing on the halfway line. Sometimes even one of them gets forward. The Quarta guy, the Argentine, they have a young Argentine center back. He gets involved in the attack at times. So it'll be really interesting to see. I think that the main thing for Olympiacos is, can we be effective with the press? I think that it caused a lot of problems for Fenerbahce, for Aston Villa, who again we're 2 attacking teams as well. But for Fiorentina, with how many players they get forward, that could really limit them as far as how they're able to put pressure on us. But conversely, we have to win the midfield battle against this team. I don't know if you picked up on this, but whereas we tend to force a lot of our turnovers on the other team by pressing them in their own half, Fiorentina tend to turn teams over in the middle of the pitch and then carry forward with the midfielders. Obviously, you talked about Artur Melo and Nico Gonzalez and just a lot of these guys that will come back and get involved. That's going to be huge. So that's looking at Chiquinho, Andre Horcha, Santiago Eze. How can they fare against this Fiorentina team? That will really dictate how Olympiacos is able to see success at executing our game plan.
I can actually confirm that Fiorentina has scored 53 goals in Serie A and have 1.5 goals per game, with, interestingly enough, 1.1 conceded. So, as you said, it's a team that focuses massively on attacking football and building on your point of them building up from the midfield as well. They have an average of 60% possession. So I think this will be a game for players like you said, Chiquinho. I think Ibora will play massive role if he's ready, because
Mm-hmm.
I honestly don't know what's going to happen. I've seen a lot of reports, don't know what's true, don't know what's not about Ibora, Ortega, and Richard. So time will tell on that. Uh, Ibora will play a massive role, though, in stopping the great build-up, honestly, and the very accurate build-up, as I can see here, that Fiorentina have. And I think once again, the man that's given Villa fans proper PTSD will have, I think, one of the most important roles in this game.
Absolutely, that he's an important player to touch on. El Kabi, the way that he plays, I think could really threaten Fiorentina because of what we just talked about. They like to get a lot of players forward, and he's so smart with his movement. You saw that second goal against Villa on Thursday. That came from Villa having all their players forward. They weren't quite back from a goal kick yet, and El Kabi is just able to sneak behind Pau Torres, and he's through on goal. So I think his ability to get involved and really put pressure on their back line just through his movement, not even necessarily being on the ball, will be hugely important for Olympiacos. And really, that could be an outlet to success for us. If you look at their semifinal against Brugge, Brugge's forward, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. He got 2 goals in the first match. One of them was a shorthanded goal right after Brugge had gone down to 10 men. And both of them really just came from him bullying defenders physically. The second goal in particular was a similar goal to what Alcabi scored against Villa, just basically him breaking by himself and beating a couple of defenders and getting through on goals. So I think there's definitely something to be said there. For the kind of player that Alcabi is, we just need to make sure we can get him involved, get him on the ball, as well as using his running to really just throw them off and not let them feel like they can push forward, because the moment they can get the wing backs forward, which is how they really like to get wide, that's going to be danger for Olympiacos, because then those guys, Dodo and Biragi, they're just going to be throwing crosses into the box, and we know with how many players they like to get forward, crashing the box, it's going to create trouble for Olympiacos defensively.
You did get there before me. I was just about to talk about Cristiano Biraghi and the damage he's done in the Conference League, especially. Dodo as well, but Biraghi a bit more. And it's clear to see how much they are being used in the Conference League and how well they're being used by Vincenzo Italiano, who I do want to point out now that I mentioned him before I move on to my next point. It is being massively talked about that if Fiorentina do lose this final as well, he's gone. Vincenzo Italiano will be sacked or not renewed, one of the two. I think not renewed. And the Pisa manager will be back, as I talked about a few episodes ago. Another player, and I think just moving from position to position just shows how complete Fiorentina are as a team. Another player we can't ignore, of course, is the genuine mastermind they have in the midfield, which proves your point once again that we need to focus on that midfield battle a lot. It is the things that Bonaventura has done for that team this year.
Absolutely. I mean, even going back to last year, I believe he scored in the final against West Ham. Um, he's a multifaceted player. Obviously, we know that his playmaking can be very dangerous, and he has players around him, Kwame, Belotti, Castrovilli sometimes that he can play off of, Nico Gomez. But he can pose a scoring threat as well from that deep role. He's kind of reminds me a bit of Kostas Fortounis in the role that he plays for Olympiacos. It's just, we have to find a way to contain him and whoever he's partnered with in the center midfield, because those two are really going to drive Fiorentina forward. And that's what's going to open up opportunities for their attacking players, whether that's the forward front three that they have or the wing backs overlapping to be able to put balls into the box. But he's proven, and a lot of these guys have proven for Fiorentina. A lot of them were part of the squad last season who made it all the way to the final. So I think they have a ton of experience, more experience in this competition than any team we've faced so far. So we're really going to need to be on our best as far as neutralizing that, because they've been here before and they know what it means to get here. And they were this close last season to winning the whole thing. West Ham only getting through on that last minute goal by Bowen. So it's going to be interesting. And they have, like you said, a lot of danger. And I think it does start with that midfield.
Another thing that we definitely have to worry about is the rotation that Fiorentina are managing perfectly within the Serie A and the Conference League, which just looking at the difference on the stats in the Serie A and the Conference League, it just shows that it's a completely different squad, but with the same exact focus. So I think we really need to work as a unit. I trust Medilibar a lot, but I really think we need to work as a unit to actually get this done. Because one more thing, even looking at the goals, as I said before, conceded and scored, and it just shows once again the point that we made already, that the focus is very, very much on the build up and the attack. The possession goes up to 62%. The goals conceded are still 1.1, but the goals scored go up from 1.7, I think I said before, to 2.2. So that is a very, very massive difference.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that you point that out, because that's kind of the way that Olympiacos have been running things as well, with all the players who don't have registered for the European list between Greece and Europe. That's kind of been an advantage for us, so we can rotate and still put out an almost equivalently strong team. Um, but I definitely I think the biggest difference between the European squad they usually put out and the side in Italy is the wingbacks, as we already touched on. Yesterday against Monza, again, I haven't looked deep enough to see if this is normal for them. I don't think that Biraghi or Dodo played at all. I think they started Parisi out left, which is where Biraghi would usually be, and I cannot remember who started at right back. But just looking at how they play in Europe, it seems like those guys get a lot more involved than they do in Italy. And I think just the difference between their match against Monza and their match against Brugge, or both matches against Brugge, is they seem to be less cross heavy in Italy just because they don't have those two guys playing. And that kind of like to your point, I can see how there would be a difference in their average goals scored because they were more reliant on the middle of the pitch and trying to create chances that way. So I think that it's interesting we're coming up against another team like that who kind of has a similar sort of rotation to us. But at the same time, that's also a major advantage for them. I don't think they have 2 league games left. Correct me if I'm wrong. So Olympiacos have to still balance more league play than Fiorentina do before the final, if I'm not mistaken. So that's going to be just another interesting thing to see how Mendilibar manages that, because it could be an advantage for our opponents. You're muted. Here you go.
Stuff happens. I'm back.
Yeah, I was trying to see if I was going to message you.
I dropped.
Okay.
Yes. The stuff happens live. It's okay. Can you repeat the last few things you said because I didn't hear you?
I'm trying to remember what I was going through.
You are.
Basically, the gist of it, I believe that Olympiacos have more domestic football left to play than Fiorentina. Um, so that's just an interesting angle. They don't.
Fiorentina have Napoli, Cagliari, and Atalanta left. We have
Oh,
AEK and Panathinaikos.
got it. Okay. For some reason I was thinking they only had one match left. Well, that's better for us then because that means that they still have to get through that and balance their rotation. Um, so from a freshness perspective, Olympiacos theoretically should be going into the final with more rest, but at the same time, that could also um, play into like match sharpness and match fitness because I think correct me if I'm wrong, we have 10 days between our final league match and the final. So it's just kind of balancing how things shape out. It'll be interesting to see what effect that has on the match.
Weirdly enough, if what I'm looking at isn't failing me completely, Fiorentina have a game after the final as well. The
Interesting.
game against Atalanta is after the final, and I do. Yes, it's 10 days exactly between the Panathinaikos and the Fiorentina game for us. As I said before, I don't. I at least can name a single player aside maybe El Kabi that can stand out on his own. Like, of course, it's self-evident that in a European final, everyone needs to step up. But as we said before, El Kabi played a massive part on his own, of course, with the 5 goals, but the press as well in getting us to that final. So I think Medilibar and the squad have a lot of work in front of them.
Yeah, I mean, I
And
think if I had to anticipate how they're going to approach it, um, I would think it would probably be along the lines of the first leg against Villa. It's an interesting thing just having it be this one off rather than the two legs that we've had these past rounds. Because usually you can get a feel for your opponent in the first leg and then make tweaks after that. He has to get it right to start with, which is again a huge challenge for any manager. Um, but I think given the backdrop of the final, the fact that it's still being played in Greece, hope that stays that way. Um, Olympiacos just I think they have to take the match to Fiorentina. We'll be on that extra rest. We should have the legs for it, and really just don't let them get comfortable. I don't think they'll be comfortable in the stadium to begin with because it should be a home game for Olympiacos. But we can't let them get into any sort of rhythm. We need to try to disrupt like we did in the first leg against Villa, like we did in the first leg against Fenerbahce, and really score the first goal. I think that's hugely important, and that's probably going to come down to El Gabi. But I think whoever starts up front with him as well, likely Fortunis and Podense, their ability to support him off the ball and to press the back line to open up that space for him and for others, that's going to be important from a tactical perspective. Uh, you mentioned that Fiorentina have a league match after the final. It'll be interesting to see how their next couple of league matches go because right now they are fighting for European place. So
they are
currently
eighth, yes.
they are eighth, so that they do need to be maintaining results to stay in that spot. Obviously, they can qualify for Europe through the Conference League final, but just as we kind of talked about, you don't want to rely on that because that's obviously going to be a difficult match for both teams. So that's an interesting development for me to hear because that really means that they can't fully shift focus to the Conference League because they still need to compete in Italy. And I mean, that's going to be a heavy toll on them. Probably having a game on the weekend before and then the weekend after, 3 games in a week, as we've seen, is difficult to manage with our result on the weekend. Um, but yeah, I think really Olympiacos need to be aggressive. I think they need to play like they did the previous first legs and just try to throw them off their game to start with and make them try to play catch up.
As I First of all, the game they have now will be very, very brutal, which is a massive plus for us because they are playing Napoli, as far as I can see, who are 2 points below them in ninth right now, and with uh, Italy as well, if I'm not that mistaken, getting uh, the other fifth spot for the UCL next year. Eighth does get Europe, so they will have to fight for that position massively. And as I can see here, they have a game after the final. It's a postponed game, and it is against a team fighting for UCL football,
Mm-hmm.
Atalanta. So it's not like it's games against teams that are fighting for relegation. It is important games. It is very important games.
And it's worth noting as well, Atalanta obviously also participating in the European final against Leverkusen and the Europa League. Um, so I think that it'll be interesting to see how their league form plays out ahead of the final because that might dictate how they have to approach the final as far as balancing Serie A. One of the things that I did look into with Fiorentina is their away record recently. Since obviously it's still a neutral ground and it won't be a full home game for Olympiacos, but it won't be a home game for Fiorentina either. Away from home in their last six, they only have one win, and that was against Salernitana, who are bottom of the league, 2 wins all season, had already been relegated by the time that match was played. Um, the other 5 matches were 2 draws and 3 defeats. So that has to be another thing that would hopefully bode well for Olympiacos. as far as just creating that atmosphere. And that's probably geared more towards the fans that will be there in the stadium, in the streets, outside the Fiorentina hotel the night before. That hopefully can be a major advantage for Olympiacos because, Fiorentina have shown that they do struggle away from home, and they definitely won't have that advantage in the final.
As I saw today, two things I want to touch on. The talks about the Fiorentina tickets being less by a lot seem to be true. There are talks that the Fiorentina fans are only going to be around 3 to 3.5 thousand,
Wow.
not 9. Uh, so I don't know how the tickets will be distributed. I don't know if we'll get more. I don't know if UEFA will keep all of them. There are talks about both, but nothing is confirmed yet. So we'll see. Also, going back to the Monza game, and it does show the rotation that Fiorentina have perfectly because you are correct. Both fullbacks were changed. It was Fabiano Parisi and Coyote, if I'm not pronouncing that horribly. Uh, and as I can see in the subs, Biragi did play, but he played only 10 minutes. So that's one of the things. And the, the third thing I wanted to touch on is the thing you said about fans on the street, especially. Uh, for whoever is listening and doesn't know or hasn't heard, the plan for the transport of the fans with a ticket will be special. Uh, Forgot the word in English. This happens once in a while.
Is
Special transfers with trains that won't stop anywhere else but two stops where the police will escort the fans to the stadium through walking, as far as I heard. No buses involved, no nothing. And I think there will be 3 layers of checks before a fan can enter the stadium. So I think that's, especially when you look at the cup final, I think EPO had nothing to do with this, and UEFA organized absolutely everything. Uh, but aside that, as far as I am aware, I will update as I always do to get as fast of updates as possible. Please follow the show on Twitter mainly. I need to start updating on Instagram more, but the fastest stuff comes on Twitter. Uh, and also, this goes not only for our fans, but the Villa fans that have been very supportive and asking me where they can watch everything. On main points of Piraeus, and I'm pretty sure Pasalimani as well, mainly Δημοτικό Θέατρο, there will be projectors that will show the game so fans can gather and watch it for free. Same as all around Karaiskakis, as far as I'm aware. There were talks about the game being projected in the stadium, but there will be work on the pitch for next season. That's why it will be projected around the stadium. I think that's all.
Yeah, I mean, you got a finger on the pulse being there, so definitely great updates to know, and I'll keep doing my best to spread the word to my following. I know I have a lot of Villa fans. Hopefully, they will all support Olympiacos in the final. A lot of them have said they have, so that's definitely welcome to hear. But yeah, I mean, I really think being that the finals in Athens, we have a special opportunity as a fan base to really set the tone for this match before anyone gets to the stadium, and that especially for our players and the Fiorentina players, this is not a team that does well away from home. So make it as intimidating of an atmosphere as possible, obviously within the means of the law and all of the guidelines that they have for inside the stadiums. Let's not see any lasers. Let's not see any stuff like that. You know, this is a spectacle for our club, and we're on a major European stage. So hopefully, as we did in the last round against Aston Villa at home, it was a very peaceful, respectful, well-mannered affair. So hopefully that continues. But that being said, make it hell. Make it hell in the streets, make it hell in the stadium. And I really think that could serve to be a 12th player for Olympiacos, as it always is, but for this match, especially against this opponent.
I think with all the checks that will be made, thankfully, not even a laser will get through. And I think that the tone will not only be set in Piraeus, but I think the tone will be set from the trains that will get everyone there and the walk even before anyone enters the stadium. And if I'm not logging in anything yet, but if I get my hand on a ticket, I am doing the best I can to capture everything.
After
That's
that,
a promise on my end.
absolutely. I mean that's that most recent video that everybody's viewing up. So I think that's definitely the content that people are going to want to see. That'd be a great view of the final.
Uh, I don't think I have you for much longer, seeing the time. So, two last things. Say everyone is okay to play, like we're missing three players now. Say everyone is okay to play. What's your 11 for the final?
I mean, obviously, Zolakis is a lock if he's healthy, which he is. Um, David Carmo and Panos Retsos. I think Retsos struggled in a couple of the rounds before the semifinal, but I thought he was very good in both legs against Villa. David Carmo has been fantastic all season long that he's been with us, so that's not even a question there. Obviously, Rodine out right, he's a fixture for us. Left back, I guess I would maybe err on the side of Francisco Ortega just because he's been healthier than Omar Richards. I like Richards more as a player, but the fact that he picked up a knock playing only a half against Villa and then he was out for the second leg, that worries me. Just what kind of state his body's in. I don't think you want to be starting a player that can't get through a 90 if needed in a final, just because those subs could be crucial, especially if the game goes to extra time. Keeney played really well, but it was a tired Aston Villa team. I think that Fiorentina are going to offer a lot more coming forward. So I think I'm just probably err on the side of Francisco Ortega if he's healthy, because I think he has more legs at this point in his career.
As brutal as it may be, I know that Kini was dead tired. I rather have Apostolopoulos as an option than Kini after what happened in Park.
That's true. The only thing about starting him in the final, obviously, I think he should be in the squad, and
Not starting him, of course,
yeah,
as a backup option.
yeah. But he's great depth to have, and when he has come in, he's played well. For midfield, like you were saying, like I'm stuck between two minds because I really think we have four midfielders who deserve to start. Obviously, that's Vicente Iborra, Chiquinho, Andre Hocha, and Santiago Eze. You're going to figure that Chiquinho and Eze are going to start regardless. So those two are likely a lock. If Iborra is healthy, just based on how he played both legs against Villa, I think you have to give him the nod. But if he's not, Andre Hocha, I think he slots in perfectly. I have no issues there if he has to start in his place. Obviously, he's a different player, but I think that Eze can slot back into that more holding midfield role, and then obviously Chiquinho and Hocha can be our players going forward. And then your front three, again, I think are locks. Daniel Porents, Kostas Fortounis, and Ayub Alkabi. I don't think there's really any question as long as all three of those guys are good to go, which again they should be. But yeah, I mean, I I think that it's just all going to come down to who we have. I hope that by that point, because we still have about 2 weeks to the final, that a lot of these injury issues will resolve, and we'll hope that Ike and Panathinaikos don't try to kill us before the final. But if we have even somewhat close to a full squad, I'll feel very confident in our players and in Jose Luis Mendilibar to prepare them and set them up in a way to succeed. Just because, again, I've been impressed by pretty much everyone in the squad during this run.
I think you basically covered all the doubts I had for the 11. And about the midfield, I think that even if it's for the first 45, that we need to survive a barrage as things are looking. I think Ibora gets the nod either way. If he can play, of course, that's self-evident. Uh, but aside that, yeah, I think the only doubts are left back and one of the midfield positions. Now, uh, wanting to cover two more things, and then as you need to go as well, I'll slowly end. I will touch on the Ike game after it, but it's very weird seeing Masuras off the squad in what's probably gonna be his last game at the Karaiskakis. So I wanted to touch on that. I do not know if anyone knows anything.
You would think
Uh,
it has to be injury because a player like him who's been with the club for so many years, if he was good to go, you'd think he'd want to be there.
you never know. Honestly, you never know.
Yeah.
Things have been weird. If this is the end for him here, which as much of a love-hate relationship as everyone has had with him, I think sadly has to be the end for him. Uh, because that position needs upgrading. And one of those upgrades is Zelson Martins, but we need another one. Uh, it's just weird. I guess we'll see. Honestly, I guess we'll see. And one more thing that involves this podcast, and the reason that today, of course, aside some time pressure, that today was more general, is that we are probably getting, and I am the happiest to announce it, we are probably getting a big two-parter with one of the biggest, at least to my knowledge, Fiorentina shows out there, the amazing guys at Viola Nation and I are trying to work something out. So that will be coming in the next few days. And I think that's about it for today, given there will probably be a show tomorrow as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think tomorrow's match against Ike is really important, obviously for the league position, um, and also just trying to make sure everyone stays healthy. I think it's going to be interesting to see how Mendilibar handles the rotation. You would think that he's probably not going to play the first team players in
Most
Europe
people
for.
want him to play the first team players. I see the opinion that I have is that I want him to rotate tomorrow and just see what happens and not just go for the win is very unpopular, surprisingly.
Yeah, I mean, I think you need to win one of these final two matches, especially after losing the Pout game. Um, there's the
I
risk of us missing out on Europe, which is the concern. Because if we do finish fourth and Aris do win the cup final, we would have to win the Conference League final, otherwise we do not get European football at all next season. Um, so I mean, I think they do need to probably come full strength tomorrow because you are at home. You have to think that a full strength Olympiacos team can be Ike at home, because you don't want to go to Panathinaikos needing a win and them probably not having the title to play for anymore. There is always that risk in the back of your mind of, hey, these teams know that Olympiacos is playing in a European final. I think they will be keen to make sure we can't win that. Um, so there's always that concern that there could be some cynical tackles. There could be players out to try to hurt the opponent, which could obviously really hurt our chances. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how he navigates it, but I think they should try to just go out and win tomorrow. Like, I think it's your best shot.
It's honestly a double-edged knife, thinking about the multiple scenarios of these last two games, but honestly, as proven many times, Mendilibar knows it best. So we'll see how he lines up tomorrow.
Absolutely.
And we will talk about it tomorrow. Thank you for thank you for everything you've already done for this brand.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for having me. It's great to get on here and talk. I haven't had something like this in a couple of years, so looking forward to building it up. And like you mentioned, that crossover with Viola Nation, hopefully it happens. That would be a great chance to get to talk to the opponents, and hopefully, they can be just as amicable and friendly as the Villa fans have been. That's what Europe's all about.
There will be more on that soon. Is my camera okay? Is it frozen?
No, you're moving.
No, okay, I'm fine. But yeah, there will be more on that hopefully in the next few days. I think that's about it. Do follow, do like and subscribe if you like what you see, and we'll talk tomorrow.
See ya.